My night at the Driscoll Hotel in Austin, Texas. I am one of those people who eats, sleeps, and breathes horror. I love macabre, ghost stories, and especially historic locations known for their paranormal activity. I have only just begun my journey of staying at as many haunted hotels as possible, but this experience was different than the few I've had thus far. It wasn't my first, and although I have this deep sense of dread as I say it, it certainly won't be my last. My husband, who is on the rocks about most things paranormal and thinks I'm an absolute psychopath, respects and accepts my passion. To celebrate my 28th birthday, he let me know a week before the date that we would be traveling somewhere and staying there for 2 nights as a surprise. I had a feeling deep in my gut that we would be driving to Austin to stay at the Driscoll Hotel. With that in mind, I packed up my bags and made sure to include my camcorder and my tripod, just in case. The weeks slowly crawled by, but we finally found ourselves on the road headed down I-10, and once we hit Interstate 71, I knew we were headed to Austin. Once we made it to the city and we turned onto Brazos Street, the rest was history. We had officially arrived to the infamous Driscoll Hotel. We entered into the grand lobby, and there Colonel Jesse Driscoll stood in darkness, contained within an ornate golden frame. As we carried our suitcases past the lonely man, I could see the sadness in his eyes. We took the lift up to the 8th floor to find our room. The hallways were thoughtfully decorated with stunning artwork every 3 feet or so from each other, and it was clear that the design throughout the structure would have delighted most, if not all, of their political and socialite guests. We stepped into our room, and to my surprise, it was light and airy. Nothing about this room made me feel uneasy. We changed our clothes, unpacked our belongings, and planned to go out for a light meal to kick off the evening. Before leaving the room, I plugged up my camcorder to charge in preparation for our first night. After eating a small meal, we made our way to Joe's coffee shop and watched the soft rain fall into the pavement around us as we patiently waited for the tour to begin. We thought we might be the only ones on the tour considering the weather was not ideal, and of course the reality of the pandemic being the backdrop of everywhere we went, but to our surprise, it was a full house. There were a handful of other couples, 2 families with small children, and a pair of friends. We first discussed the Frost Tower, and then the Spaghetti Warehouse, the Speakeasy, and then a great story about the first heavily documented serial killer in America who allegedly may have been Jack the Ripper, who may have resided in Austin, Texas as a butcher prior to moving to Europe. Just when I thought I couldn't wait any longer, we turned the corner, and there the Driscoll sat, waiting for her story to be told. Having done research on the hotel prior to staying, I was expecting the guide to bring up the death of Samantha Houston and the creepy painting of her that is located in the building. However, I apparently hadn't done enough research because there were not 1, but 2 additional stories that I found particularly sinister that I had not heard about prior. The suicide brides, he began. Long story short, it is believed that 2 young women who were in the hotel for their honeymoons had both committed suicide by gruesomely shooting themselves in the stomach and bleeding out in the bathtub. The craziest part is that they both had stayed in room number 525 and had both taken their lives in the same bathtub, exactly 20 years apart. I have a habit of getting really excited to stay at haunted hotels, and then after taking the ghost tour, I get pretty freaked out. It wouldn't stop me from staying the night, but I would be lying if I said I wasn't ready for a drink, or 6 as a precaution to sleep peacefully through the night. We headed to the Driscoll bar and enjoyed the busy atmosphere, discussing all of the new things we just learned. After I finally felt all warm and fuzzy, it was time to go find the famous painting of Samantha Houston on the 5th floor. The floor level we were staying on was a straight hallway, and nothing more. When we exited the elevator onto the 5th and saw the straight hall in front of us, I thought it must be pretty similar, and we would find the painting in no time. I looked to my right expecting to see a wall similar to the 8th level, but instead was met with yet another long hall. My curiosity pulled me down the mystery hall, so we veered right and began walking. About midway, I was met by another opening to yet another long hallway. Wow, the 5th floor was like a maze. We wandered for a bit. I sang her name as we stepped quietly through. Samantha, I giggled drunkenly. Where are you? My eyes finally met with hers. She gazed at me as if she had heard me calling for her. Her eyes had no evil in them. She was pure innocence. Her eyes were big and beautiful, much like that of a deer. I filmed from afar and slowly walked up to the painting. We took a few photos. I've attached one to this post. Then headed up to the room, completely forgetting about room 525, which I'm actually 100% okay with. We settled into our room and talked a bit about the night until we got too tired to stay up any longer. Before getting into bed, I pulled my camcorder off the charger, turned it on and confirmed it had 100% battery, and placed it on the tripod and began filming the night. It had to have been roughly 2 a.m. when I was awoken by a fly buzzing around my face. I watched him zoom back and forth, and then I finally slapped him down. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, where I then shined the light onto my hand and could see what was left of the fly and his blood. I don't remember a lot after that, but I must have fallen back to sleep. I must have been dreaming, because the next time I woke up, I was standing in the corner of the room, right about where my tripod was set up. I looked at the bed, and there I saw my husband and myself sleeping. I stood there frozen, My husband was sleeping in a normal position, but my head was halfway down the mattress, and my feet hanging off the bottom. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, and I can't even explain how. It didn't feel like a long time after that. I seemed to have woken up, now back in bed, and I began screaming and crying hysterically. My husband turned over and comforted me, and I laid there awake for quite some time until I fell back to sleep. Again, I find myself standing in the corner of the room in the same spot as before, but this time was different. I could see my husband in bed, and to be quite honest, I don't recall whether I was in the bed with him or not, because my attention was on the other side of the room. From the corner I was standing in, I had a clear shot of the entrance into the powder room and bathroom, where I saw a woman dressed in housekeeper clothes. I have attached a photo that I found online that looked like the outfit she was wearing. I could tell in that moment that her outfit was not from our time. She crossed the doorframe from the power room with the vacuum, and went into the bathroom where I could no longer see her. She then took a step backwards, back into the doorframe, as if she had perhaps seen something that caught her attention, and looked right at me. She had dark hair that was pulled back, and she stood there in silence. She was clearly there right in front of my eyes, but she had this washed-out presence about her. She was not bright, just illuminating some form of dim bluish low light that looked like she was fading. The exchange of looks had me feeling as though I was the one who was watching her, and she then carried on with her duties out of my sight. Finally, it was daylight the next time I woke up. Despite feeling as though I was hit by a bus and got absolutely no rest, I had never been so excited for morning, and the first thing I did was turn over to my husband, exhausted. I started by explaining the weird fly that woke me, and then proceeded to ask if he remembered me waking him up crying. He said that he was 100% sure that he had not been woken up, nor did he hear me crying or screaming. After this, I realized maybe I had been dreaming when I thought I was awake. I was completely lost in my own reality. I then remembered that I had been recording the whole night, and I rushed to the camcorder and pulled it off of the tripod to review the footage. Upon powering on the camcorder, I was greeted with the message, "Corrupt file." I was in disbelief about the events that took place the night before, and now I would never know if I had potentially caught something on video. I saw no blood anywhere, or any remnants of the fly, and no evidence of the events that took place. I was defeated, and terrified that I had to stay at this hotel in this room for another night. The close of this story is this. I did not record the second night because I felt as though maybe that provoked whatever I experienced the night prior. After more drinking and lots of lights on, I managed to sleep on night 2 with no disturbances. When we returned home, I was having trouble sleeping for about 4 days because I kept having this feeling that I was being watched. It finally shook off in time, and I am recharged and ready to go and check out another haunted location. But this was definitely something that I did not expect and will never forget.